Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Truth Foragers with me, Dickie Waghorn. Uh, Regular viewers may notice that there's a different face looking across at me this evening, and that's because our beloved Rick Bishop has been taken ill, unfortunately, under, I'm going to call it mysterious circumstances, unexplainable circumstances. We're looking into it at the minute, but he's unable to join us this evening. However, I'm joined this evening by a new friend. I'm going to call him a friend. I hope he'll accept it. We'll see. We'll see if we can grow close together this evening. I do apologise. I've just had some Toblerone, and those of you that have had Toblerone before will know it's very chewy. It's kind of like a Swiss Egyptian conspiracy with the pyramids and the chewiness. It's terrible. So I do apologise. Very unprofessional. But yes, I've got a new friend this evening, and we're going to go through a few conspiracies together, a few urban myths, a few legends, and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of it. Dear viewers and dear listeners, if it's your first time here, you're very, very welcome to join us. We are interactive, especially unless you're watching us on VOD, of course. But if you're live at the time, we're going to be here for an hour and a half, maybe, this evening. Not too long this evening. And if you want to interact in chat, you're very, very, very welcome. Suck Fiddler is there. Yeah, she's a big fan. Someone called already Half Spliced is in this evening. Good evening to you, new friend. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope, unfortunately, already Half Spliced, our regular co-host with me, is not here today. The people's preferred co-host, but hopefully he'll be back soon. I hope you enjoy it with the B team. We're going to call it the B team for the evening. We'll see how it goes. Sparrow, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What a joy to have you with us too. So, dear viewers, the way this works is we're going to go through different myths, different legends. We're going to look at it from different sides, talk through what it is, put across some ideas, and at the end of it, we're going to make a big decision whether we believe in this legend. I believe whether we're skeptical. I remain sceptical, or whether Vincent Price needs to come and help us. There is young Vincent. We bow to Vincent Price, of course, on this channel. Sparrow, hope you're well. It's an absolute delight to have you with us, man. I really appreciate you. You can spend some points if you want, the Imperial credits. You can spend 50 to remain sceptical, 50 to I believe, so you can take part in the decision-making process as well. If you know anything about the conspiracies or the myths, or have experienced similar things, please interact on the chat. We'll take questions, we'll take pointers. Any knowledge that you've got is always very, very welcome. We work together. We are a team fighting against the myth, the legends, and trying to find the truth. We snuffle together for our truth truffles. And this has been a very long build-up because I'm snuffling with someone new this evening. He's proven himself to be a fine snuffler. He's found many truth truffles. I spent the summer with him. Those of you that know, in England, the summer has sort of coming to an end. But over August, I spent 4 weeks in Sherwood Forest, quite a famous forest, some of you may have heard of. And there I came across this wonderful man, travelling around in his portable home. We're going portable home. It's an absolute delight. I believe he's lived in it for a while, but we can talk about that a little bit more. He is the fascinating, highly intelligent, and deeply understanding Henry Zim. Good evening, Henry, or Rico, I believe I can call you. How are you doing?
Good evening, Dickie. Good evening. I'm doing really well, thank you. I've got to say, I've been a long time fan of the show, a long time snuffler, as we like to call ourselves within the community. And it was an honour to run into you, but it's an honour to be here. Thank you.
No, thank you for all those evenings spent eating food out of cans together. Of course, you don't cook these foods, of course, because that's how they get you, isn't it? I believe you said you like to eat raw food out of tins, so you know what you're getting.
Yeah. Well, we went through how it's stored and how the process evolves when you start heating up the food, and what that brings inside. Anybody who's interested can find more information out on my website. I won't give the link out here because I don't want to get Dickie in any trouble or leave too many breadcrumbs. But but the truth's out there.
Thank you, Henry. Those of you that do subscribe to our Truth Foragers zine, all paper, of course, and all hand delivered because we can't trust the post. But those of you that do, I will put a link in there to Henry's website. It will be in code, of course, so use your codexes to translate it to get the websites. So, Henry, Rico, my friend, how did you find it in Sherwood as a place? Did you? I hear you went there with a lot of vision, a lot of hope. What was it like being out there all on your own for such a time?
Well, I'm used to traveling by myself. I'm used to traveling, obviously. I'm used to being by myself. It was I mean, it's a beautiful place. I didn't spend too much time looking around, other than because there's so much there to discover and so much there to look into, so much truth to be snuffled, if you will. You know how you sometimes you just find yourself within those snuffling blinkers, and you don't have. It's hard. It's hard for people like us, to take in the world around us. Sometimes we just got to get to the end of the story, find the truth.
Yes, very much. So when your nose is very
And
much
it's a burden
sniffing,
that
you carry it well. I feel you carry your burden wonderfully. I see that you are in your the special room in your camper, the one that's fully sheeted out to avoid tracking. So I believe that we're safe having this conversation this evening.
Yeah. We most certainly are safe. Obviously, I don't use VPN because those things are set up for you to be tracked, basically. But I am in the room, deep within my camper. Good old Poco here is. I have a special room that's lined with at least 1 inch thick of tinfoil on each of the six walls. Yeah, with just a thin escape for the wire for the power, obviously, but the wires in themselves are inherently protected against such tracking.
Splendid, excellent. We do have a question from one of our regulars, Rico. Do you give guided tours of your camper, or do you take true believers out to snuffle together?
I mean, it's hard to say. If you're a true snuffler and you're one of the trusted people, then perhaps that will happen. But numerous times I've found people within the community who are in fact out to debunk, out to underhandedly sabotage the mission at hand, whether it be obviously the good work of yourself and your colleague, or my own work. There are infiltrators within the community, and not many, obviously, because it is a wonderful community. But it's difficult to find those people that you truly trust.
You're right. We have a wonderful community. We have a wonderful community here on the Truth Foragers. Everyone that joins chat, I do have another screen running, of course, with all their IPs, their addresses are pinging up right now constantly, so I know exactly who's watching, who's listening, so I know that they are friends, because I think friendship comes with responsibilities to each other as well, and I think it's important that we all trust each other in such a way.
Of course, and that's the only reason. Well, we spoke about this at length. It's the only reason that I agreed to be here, is because I have such trust in your your policies and procedures to protect the community.
Wonderful, wonderful. We must all look out for each other after all. So anyway, that's we've been chatting and talking for a while, but I didn't just bring you here for a chat, as lovely as it is. We're going to look at a few urban myths that we've discussed somewhat around our cold tins of an evening, and I believe the first one we're looking at today is one that you brought to me. It's one that you've been looking into for a while in Sherwood that I'd never heard of till I got there. It was all new to me. You were the one that brought it to my attention, and I thank you a lot for that. Could you let us know what is it?
Yeah, of course I can. Of course, it is in fact the sole reason that I first ventured into Sherwood before further truths started to unravel in front of me and around me in the tight knit community there. I think we can both agree. But the thing that first drew me to investigate the area was what is known to locals as the puckish tree.
Ooh, lovely. Let me just put a little bit of music in there to excite people. Okay, please tell me more. Please tell me more, Rico.
Well, I can't help but feel. I mean, of course, you came around with me when we asked questions of locals, and in fact, when we made it to the tree itself, and I feel as though your experience there, whilst not as of course, it is a collection of wide and vast array of experiences from different people, but I think yours in particular sets the tone for the tree quite well compared to the stories that we gathered from the community.
Oh,
perhaps you'd like to lead off with.
It was definitely a very new experience for me. Like you said, you'd known of it before, and it was quite a challenging moment for me, I suppose. Good evening, new friends from the Infant Monkey Channels. Thank you for joining us. Please join us in our voyage of truth as we uncover some urban myths and urban legends. If you don't know who I am, my name's Dickie Waghorn. I'm joined with a new friend this evening, Henry Zim. We can all call him Rico. And if any of you have heard of... Oh, lovely. If see, you know our community is friendly already. If any of you have any input in these myths or know anything about them, please post them in chat. My voice went very strange there. I blame the Toblerone. If you have any questions, of course, please ask as well, and we'll attempt to answer with our knowledge and so on.
Well, you know my opinion on Toblerone as well. We discussed that at length.
I know. I felt quite bad for having some after getting.
You're asking for trouble.
Oh yeah, fair enough. To be honest, it's a whole dental conspiracy, isn't it? It's how dentists make most of their money, I believe, off Toblerones.
Well, why do you think there's a picture of a bear on the packet?
Of course, that's a whole.
Obviously, dentists.
We could run hours and hours on that. We'll leave that for another evening, I think. We could. Don't get me started, Rico. Don't get me started. Yes, the puckish tree. I've not heard much of it. I'd heard slight words from you, but really, you told me to just approach it with an open mind. Of course, like I always do. And it was strange. It was very strange. It felt like the closer I walked to it, I felt like I was in the presence of like an electrical force, something like that, something that kept fluctuating over me. Sometimes there was briefly a sense of well-being, then fear, then well-being, then fear. It was very strange. Have your experiences with the puckish tree been the same or different?
Well, I mean, yours sounds like my day-to-day life, if I'm honest. You're walking down the street and you see someone look at you twice and you think, maybe they know. Anyway, mine. Of course, part of the mystery behind the tree is that feeling that people describe is always described in a plethora of different ways. Some have a fluctuation in emotions, and some feel as though there's a fluctuation in time or space itself. I personally felt rather almost intoxicated, and of course I don't drink, but the I suppose akin to shifts in gravity. It's very strange.
That would tie in, I suppose, with when I started looking up about the puckish tree afterwards, in the evenings after. People have talked about birds perching on the tree, but instead of perching the right way up, as they perch on the tree, they perch upside down, which ties it like dangling below, which ties in with with that whole thing.
But not the bats, of course.
No, the bats go the other way.
No, which is, well, it's a strange one. I mean, obviously, you know where I stand on such things, and it's what brought me there in the first place. Is it feels like a very overarching problem that could be closely tied into my own personal beliefs, but it's a very odd space, and it gives off very very distinct yet varying vibes to each person.
You were telling me of the 7-year-old girl, Amelia Jones, who her father had set up a swing for her on the puckish tree. A very peculiar experience.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've seen some home shot video of said swing in action. Obviously, I can't share it here. The connection in my safe room in the camper is not really suitable for sharing such video. But next time we meet in person, no pressure, obviously. Big fan. Next time we meet in person, I could certainly bring it along and show you the cassette. It's an odd occurrence, and not necessarily a shift in gravity. It's almost as if watching it on tape, it feels almost as if the tape has been rewound.
Very unnerving.
But there's just a switch almost partway through a swing, and then it just changes in direction.
But the interesting thing was, I think the father who was recording it realised, and there was that part where he comes out to prove that it's not backwards, because he does the old dance from the end of Blockbusters for those of a certain age from the UK, with all that and this to prove that it's a very difficult dance to do back to front, of course, with the hands. And he stood there and did it forwards while his daughter was being thrown around all over the place.
Yeah, indeed, and of course it's on an actual real cassette, so theoretically you can see the tape if you open up the top flap, and it from my limited experience with that media, it does not appear to have been tampered with or copied and spliced together. It definitely looks like it's the real deal.
It's definitely unnerving, and I recommend people find clips of it online, and believe me, I've seen the real tape, thanks to Rico, and what you see on those clips is what is on the tape. It's incredible. Not the ones that people have edited to sort of have Nyan Cats or Katy Perry songs playing over the background of it or anything like that. The actual footage, of course. Rico, Sock Fiddler has asked, it appears that she has some knowledge actually of the case. Of course she
Hmm.
does. She's a truth forager, and our truth foragers are very intelligent snufflers. Is it true, Rico, that the puckish tree was... oh, she's playing with words, very clever word on Sock Fiddler, was not responsible for the hanging of 7 separate highwaymen who specifically requested to be hanged from its branches, knowing that they cannot be punished twice for the same crime. Is there written history of that at all?
Well, there's certainly not written history. In fact, that's one of the weirder facts about the puckish tree is that there is no written history at all, but there is such a vibrant spoken history throughout the surrounding area. We did in fact speak to somebody who had a very similar story. There are slight differences, obviously, in what Sock Fiddlers heard and what we heard. Who's to say which is true? But there are in fact 7 distinct knots in the tree where running down the trunk, all in a line, all of slightly varying sizes, which the locals say depicts the stature and the size of the highwayman in question, which is a very, again, not nothing concrete, but it's a very weird set of circumstances, especially for them to be so accurately lined up. I believe in the order that they were caught, is what I heard.
Interesting. That is fascinating. Sparrow asks, can you become a highwayman by hanging from the tree? Of course, it's very difficult to hang from the tree because of the way the gravity works, but almost like the sword and stone, I suppose. If someone can hang properly, do they gain that sort of power? That is just a myth, right? There's no proof for that, unlike the rest.
Well, I mean, I suppose that all depends on your greater outlook on life and the world that we inhabit. As a firm believer in simulation theory, I believe that the tree is in fact what drew me there in the first place. That the tree is in fact an epicenter for some corrupted code, which of course can lead to anything. So it could very well lead to situations like that in fact happening. Who are we to know? I did take out my my computer and try to download some of the code, not the digital code, of course, because that's all just made up, but some of the code around us while we were there, and there's no. It's hard. It's not always an exact science. It's more of an art, and I think perhaps a trip back to Sherwood is in my future.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Sock Fiddler's asked another question. This is one that I do feel like I can answer, the research that I've done since returning. Is the tree in fact entirely upside down, and what we believe for its branches are its roots, while its upper boughs are entirely buried in the ground? That's a really interesting question. I did do some research around, again, it has to be word of mouth. There was a time in 1783, I believe, where woodsmen came, believing in sort of a curse or witchcraft, that sort of fear with the highwaymen and such like. And there is rumours that it was chopped down. But it's just rumours that it was chopped down, and they sort of almost like dug it out, And they did to try and remove the curse, put it, just planted it back upside down again. So what you say definitely has roots. Is it pun intended? Roots in history. But the spooky thing, of course, is that so the story goes from the locals that the next day the tree had replaced itself the right way round again, Rico, and I believe that's something you've heard time and time again from those that have passed by.
Yeah, indeed, and that ties itself perfectly well into my theory. Of course, the corruption of the code and some kind of difference between this tree and what we perceive as normal trees in everyday life?
It is the tree that cannot be killed, quite literally. It's a fascinating thing, the Puckish tree, and I do recommend people go to Sherwood Forest if they can, especially Sparrow, who is already a believer. Sparrow does believe. He often does, to be fair. He's easily swayed in that regard. But do recommend going to Sherwood Forest, because as you approach the Puckish tree, it does appear like other trees are bowing away from it somewhat, and you get that crackling feel. And I think not everyone feels it. It must be said, Rico. I believe those that aren't necessarily believers. I think a rugby team went there, a scout group, lovers have passed by. They don't always say they feel it, do they? It's like they're not fully attuned to it, perhaps.
No, well, I mean, if it was, if it was 100% of the time, we wouldn't be discussing it on the show, would we? With the greatest of respect, of course. And it's about finding out what the difference is and why it chooses to present these effects when it does, and to whom, and the reasoning behind it. I think that makes it such an intriguing. I'm going to say artifact. Place of importance.
Does it feel like a holy site to you, Rico?
I wouldn't say holy. It
I
certainly
know you're
feels
not a man of religion so much.
No, it certainly feels like a place of great importance for society as a whole. Certainly the local society around there, but more importantly of course, for all believers in. I don't want to harp on about it, but simulation theory, and it just feels important.
That's a good way of putting it. The Puckish tree. Importance. We'll pass it over to you, dear viewers, and Rico and myself will put across our final thoughts, as is the way we do things in the channel. Dear viewers, I'd like you to choose, if you can, whether you believe in the power of the Puckish tree or you remain sceptical. Rico, do you believe in the Puckish tree, or are you still sceptical? I think I know which way you're going with this.
Firstly, also, it's an honour to be here being asked that question. But of course, I went to Sherwood for some answers, and not all answers were found. But I am a firm believer.
Firm believer. He believes. As for me, Dickie Waghorn, your friend and confidant, I went to Sherwood Forest this summer with an open mind, and I did not go meaning to run into Rico. I wasn't expecting it. All those nights spent together discussing such amazing myths and legends and truths. The one that really impacted me, I must say, was the Puckish tree, and walking close to it, feeling that electrical crackling, the different feelings of emotions washing uncontrollably over me, and hearing the tales. I too, it must be said, I believe. I do believe in the Puckish tree. I'm just going to put the build music on briefly, and then we're going to have a look and see what's going on in chat to see if people side with us or not. Chat believes. Sock Fiddler believes. Already half spliced believes. Sparrow believes. It's from those that have responded. It's 100% belief in the Puckish tree, and I don't blame you. I think Rico has put across good proof, good hard evidence tonight, especially with that cassette tape. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic work, Rico. I think your time was spent well. A good start, I'd say. A good start indeed.
Definitely. I think perhaps maybe your you mentioned before your subscribers and the coded message for the website that you could put out. Perhaps we could do a similar thing if we were to break the cassette video into ones and zeros and sent out like a binary message. I mean, it might be quite a long one, but if we coded a binary message to them and sent that out, then they could watch it for themselves.
Oh, no, that I like the idea of. Anyway, it's time to move on, of course, from the puckish tree. I have set the phone to dial because we do have a special guest with us for this second one. When we, you'll remember, of course, Rico, that as we were chatting of those evenings, I did tell you of a friend of mine, from a fellow truth forager, let's say, who has some experience in a tale based in Sherwood. And that colleague of mine is on the line now, I believe. Philomena, are you there? Philomena, hello?
All right, my darling. All right, how are you? How are you? It's lovely to talk to you again. Hello.
Oh, it's a delight to have you back, Philomena. I hope life has been treating you well the last few weeks.
Oh, it's been very, very good. And I got your message, by the way, and I thought it was very funny. It was 1011 Oh, how I laughed.
I see why. It wasn't meant to be funny, but the last O should have been a 1.
Well, it actually turned it into the word owl, and I hadn't expected that as a punchline.
Well, actually, no, you put it that way. I think that does work better, actually. Dear friends, dear friend Rico as well. This is Philomena Sottovoce. She is a true snuffler like us. She is a forager of the truth. She has joined us before. She has brought great truths to us. Great. Last time around, it was a conspiracy, I believe, against left-handed people.
Left-handed people and the city of Atlantis, and also since then I've written a book, and I published it on Amazon, and it sold precisely 17 signed copies.
Now that's big. That's big numbers. Congratulations! You must be very must be proud of yourself.
I'm feeling like if I sell another 2,383, I might be able to get a book deal with Amazon.
Well, it's good to bring the truth to the masses, of course. Rico, I must warn you that Philomena is more open to general publishing, to putting things out there a lot more. So be as comfortable or guarded as you wish when talking to her. She's a friend, but I understand how you go with these things.
Yes, well, of course, I am familiar with Philomena. We've had many a discussion in chat.
We have over a glass of porter on a Wednesday evening in that nice little pub just outside Arundel.
Indeed. And whilst we may differ on, shall we say, our levels of trust, I think she certainly has the character of a truth.
I think that's fair to say. I remember. In the summer of 2019, our friend Rico here was totally scandalised when I took all the tin foil down off my roof. He was like, "What are you doing? They're going to hear everything." I said, "I've got nothing much to say that they can't already read of myself." Almost everything that I've ever thought. And he went, "Well, when you put it like that, it's not going to be a problem then, is it?" And I said, "No."
Anyway, Philomena.
All right, darling, sorry, I do get
I know you do. It's very exciting to have you on, and I know that those 17 copies have spun your head, and I do understand. I share in your excitement. The messages you've sent me 27 messages in the last 2 days of.
Well, I think it's very nice of you to have bought 12 of those 17 copies. I think that's very kind of you.
Well, I keep them there because I'll read one from cover to cover, and when it wears out, I'll move on to the second version.
Oh, so. You're a good boy. I like you.
You know they put microchips in those Amazon print on demand books.
Is there anything they go beat
right,
when you
Dickie?
walk out the shop? Oh wait, they don't have shops, do they? Oh, silly me.
It's why I keep them, Rico, in my second home, my normie home.
If you microwave them when you get them, about 30 seconds each, it'll
Good.
work about 50% of the time.
Good for the winter as well. Nice warm books to read. Lovely.
Keeps the hands warm.
I ain't got a warm book.
Oh, wow. But the thing you have given thought to, of course, Philomena, is the reason you're here this evening. But you've got a myth, a legend that you want to share with us, so we can have a chat about.
It's a bit more of a myth. If you'll excuse my pun, I do. I uncovered some very exciting information about Sherwood Forest and its local legends, if you will.
What, Rico?
Oh, well, Rico is a local legend, that's true. He's very handsome, isn't he? Hello, sorry. All right, love. All right, darling.
Oh, you've gone all embarrassed, haven't you, Philomena? Don't worry, keep your eye on the prize this evening.
He's much nicer than that last fella. What was his name? That Dr. Phil type. We did not like him.
Oh, Rick Bishop. Rick Bishop is.
Oh no, not Rick Bishop.
Oh
no.
No.
Lord forbid.
I did wonder. I thought you took a liking to Rick as well. So.
Oh, I did. And it's Merlot. You know what I mean.
It's just a shame you've got no time for Dickie.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that. Let's talk about this local legend, shall we?
Yes, let's do it. Rowena Wood. Rowena Hood, even.
Rowena Hood.
Yeah, please introduce us to Rowena Hood.
Well, everyone knows the legend of Robin Hood, who stole from the rich and gave it to the poor. But actually, none of that's true. His name was Rowena, and he was a local orphan who was actually a girl, and one of Nottingham's most famous lesbian couple.
Was she left-handed, Philomena?
There is evidence to suggest that, yes, she was indeed left-handed.
Interesting.
Shall I tell you how?
Please do.
We have found a bow that apparently belonged to Rowena, and if you assume the top is the top and the bottom is the bottom, it bends rightwards, which suggests that it was being drawn by the right hand and held in the left. If she was right-handed, it would have gone the other way. Of course, we might just have it upside down.
Well, that's what that's open to more research, I suppose. I'm sure that you will, being your first love, of course.
Stringing bows?
No, string bows. I've heard that you do like to dabble with a bit of willow.
I do like a little 90-pounder. It's true.
A bit of ash and elm and that.
Oh.
So, some of our viewers, especially some of the norms out there, will say that Rowena, Robin, didn't exist at all, male or female, straight or lesbian.
Well, you have to understand that folk heroes have always prevailed, and in Nottinghamshire, there's not very much else to do there. So they tend to make a lot of stuff up. And then as time goes on, the stuff they make up gets bigger and more fanciful. But the truth of it is, Rowena did nick stuff off rich people because she were busy looking after their kids while they were off doing all the crusades and the wandering about and the crime and the building the things. So she was up there on a hill with the people looking after the kids, and that's who Little John was, and all the others, Friar Tuck. That was no accident. He was a little chunk, that one was. She ran a kindergarten, Rowena Hood, and Maid Marian was her fancy bit.
Interesting. Rico, you when you heard that we'd be looking into Rowena Hood this evening, you went off and did some research, I think. Did you find anything that supports this at all or goes against it?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest, Dickie. I did a lot of research and I found a lot of information, to be fair, but got somewhat sidetracked by the by the photos, of course, which obviously weren't around at the time. But there's been several time traveler Rowena Hood photos of her appearing, like in 1920s America. I'm sure you've seen that one. That's a big one. And various other settings that they definitely shouldn't be in. And at that point, I'm sold. There's photographic evidence. It's real.
It's been known for centuries that Robin Hood was actually a woman. And also, we've been putting it into plays for the longest time. For example, Peter Pan was supposed to be a vague association with Robin Hood, and in pantomime, he's often played by a woman.
That is very true.
That is very interesting. There does seem to be some links. It feels that if you start putting these famous figures up on a board together and connecting them with of course, the Red Wool. If you want your own conspiracy board Red Wool, it is available on the Rick and Dickie website. Of course, we sell it at a very good Ricky Dickie website. We sell it at a very good price for your own conspiracy board needs. But moving
It's
back,
top quality wool as well.
it is top quality. You can wrap it numerous times around a nail and it won't fray at all. You can reuse it when you change your mind or when you find new research, of course. Philomena, with Rowena Hood seen as a lady, is there anything to suggest that the Sheriff of Nottingham was anything other than a firm, moody, mean man?
There was a portrait found of him in 1964, which predicted that he would look a lot like Alan Rickman in actual fact. And of course, Alan Rickman came to fame rather famously before he died. But no, he was just a nasty old man, really. There's not much to say about him.
Well, it's true after all. Rowena Hood, of course, it would be quite a turnaround, I guess, for Nottingham. They'd have to change a lot of signage, a lot of pamphlets, of course, a lot of their advertising for the town and for the county. Do you think that's part of what keeps this news buried? Would you say they're sort of keeping it buried a little bit, keeping it to Robin? Is it a money thing?
Well, I'd like to say it is, but I think honestly, the people of Nottingham aren't strangers to cross-dressing in any way, and so Rowena being Robin for an afternoon, I don't see any problem with that. The fact of the matter is, I don't think it makes much difference. It would just be nice to see her name every now and again in full on, Housing Estate Road or something.
A viewer Ewan, he's been quite quiet this evening, but he's asked a question just now. I hear Disney, in fact, found several scrolls of sheet music written by Rowena Hood that they've kept hidden and used for the Robin Hood soundtrack without crediting it as Rowena. Is this true? Have you researched that at all?
I have heard that there was sheet music found by a certain R.A. Hood that seemed to have been written with a left-handed quill, which could be our very own Rowena. But also, it might be that Greensleeves has been misaccredited to Henry VIII when actually it was Rowena writing to her darling Lady Marian.
Rico, you have a fondness for lefties, of course. Have you looked into this quill, this left-handed quill at all?
Well, I'm no handwriting expert, but I do know a few. I have a few friends who are quite well versed in the art, and most of them seem to come to the conclusion that anything I've shown them that is in fact accredited to Rowena is indeed left-handed. I'd say about 50% of them.
There's
Yeah.
quite
So
a lot of
I'm,
quite a lot of stuff as well, isn't there?
I'm
There's
pretty
the
convinced.
left-handed potato peeler, left-handed comb, left-handed mirror, all kinds of stuff. Really, the left-handed shoelaces and buckles were a real find.
It's true. Of course.
And the belts.
Oh,
Obviously.
mustn't forget the belt.
I guess with the left-handed arrows, of course, it's all about how she grips the shaft, of course.
It's how she's feathered the shaft, my love.
So you sound very confident, Philomena. I've spoken to you other times when you're 50-50, 60-40, even 70-30 on something. You seem very confident with Rowena Hood this time. I've never heard you quite so certain.
Well, I mean, who hasn't grown up loving the Robin Hood myth after all, with the Michael Praed thing in the 80s with the mist and the long hair, and then Maid Marian with Kevin Costner in that terrible film, and then I don't know, it's just something that's always been around, isn't it? And in these days of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, it just seems like she's become relevant again. Why wouldn't we want to look to a woman to rebalance the scales a little bit?
It's a very, very good point, it must be said. Very good point. Would you say that Disney making Robin Hood a fox was a sort of a guarded nudge towards Rowena?
It's interesting you should ask that, because the academic community that I am part of mostly centered around Swindon Polytechnic, I gotta be honest, but most of us feel that it's a double-edged sword in being a fox like that, because on the one hand you've got foxy ladies, but on the other hand older men are considered old foxes, so it's difficult to know what they were getting at exactly.
And you have Dr. Fox as well, of course.
Oh, yeah, I like him.
So this is fascinating for me. I think you've given us an awful lot to think about with Rowena Hood. I think it's not something that I've been too invested in, I guess. But from spending that time in Sherwood, you did hear the rumblings of foragers out there that maybe this may gain some momentum, Philomena, that you may see. You already see, Rika, I'm sure you've seen, there are stickers up around Nottingham proclaiming Rowena as a woman. Quite sort of anarchist sort of graffiti style. I think someone sprayed one on your van at some point, didn't they, Rika? On your camper?
Yes, they did. In fact, I found that it was actually quite helpful. The graffiti spray paint, once it had dried, obviously, sort of held together a slight crack that's been appearing. I haven't got around to fixing yet.
That was me, and I was just practicing the logo on something that I thought had been like discarded in the middle of the forest. I didn't realise it was your little special.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. As I say, it has it's structurally solidified good old Poco a little bit more. So,
but it is the logo we eventually settled on, which means I should thank you, my darling, because you're like the original Banksy, if you like. Only I'm not Banksy.
It's probably doubled the value
Banksy,
of.
Also a left-handed woman.
Well, that's a whole other discussion.
That's a story for another day.
Oh, I can't. I really want to be around when you get into that, Dickie. If that's okay, because this sounds fascinating.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I did notice when I was browsing Amazon, of course, from a cyber cafe computer, not my own, of course. It's hard to find a cyber cafe as well now. I had to go to another country for it. But
well, why do you think that is?
Don't take me down that rabbit hole, Rika.
I can just pop over to Cardiff.
That's very true, but
right over the bridge.
When I did go onto Amazon and I was looking around, browsing, I did see that Philomena had already started a page for Banksy was a left-handed woman. Banksy is a left-handed woman. So I'm assuming that book is coming at some point, Philomena.
I'm in talks at the moment to make sure that I don't get into trouble with his little legal team. But they did write me a very nice email. We don't want to blow our cover. They did get in touch and say, frankly, we think you're as nutty as a fruit cake, Philomena. So go ahead and say whatever you like, you mad old sow. Which I thought was very personable of them, honestly.
It is often what people say to you, I believe. It's how you get away with saying so much. It helps you speak truth to power.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get around, copyright and legal teams, if I do say so myself. It's a really nice persona to put across to get your get the truth out there.
Speaking of persona and getting things out there, Sparrow has asked Philomena, and I do know the answer to this because of your previous life, as it were. What percentage of your various books, especially over the years, are smut?
Well, I got to be honest. I had to fund my way through my polytechnic degree and my HND and my City and Guilds Level 2 and 3 using alternative means. And sometimes that had to be a little bit of Victorian barbershop excitement, shall we say. I could read an excerpt on my podcast next week involving Mr. Smithers and Lady Jane's ankles. Anyway, there was a certain amount of smart written because it does like to pay the bills, doesn't it? But I'm trying not to do it anymore. I've been to some sessions and I've had a chat with a therapist who just wanted to keep on buying it. I gotta be honest, they weren't that helpful. I'm trying now to write other books, and I've sold 17 copies.
Wow.
It feels like a good job for the therapist, who's presumably you're paying to go there and talk to them about the smutty books that they want to get more of.
Well, see, it was a writing circle, and I was wondering whether or not I was stepping on her toes by going into the barbershop porn theme. But it turns out literotica is very democratic, and if you want to write about a four-piece barbershop Victorian singing group cutting men's hair and looking at ladies' ankles, you can just go right on and do it, and no one can tell you what or how.
Of course, if anyone does happen across a Philomena Sottovoce, there's a very specific book. It's a pop-up book of left-handed men lifting up the long dresses of women in barbershops and getting a look at their ankles, all left-handed, all very erotic.
It's called 1901 Lift the Flap, ladies, is what it's called.
Apparently, it's available for. I think you could sell it for £24, which is 6 times the amount of any of your other books easily.
That's for an old box. I got that at a car boot sale just outside Swindon.
Fantastic. Well,
sorry, oddly enough,
please.
You don't get the opportunity very often to ask authors. I certainly don't about their books. But oddly enough, Philomena, I heard that that your smut books you actually wrote right-handed. Is this true? On a right-handed keyboard, opposed to your normal left, or is it vicious rumor? I'm sorry if I've started spreading more.
I can't believe you asked me that. What actually happened is someone told me that I'd be a better writer if I wrote in the mirror, because then I'd be able to watch myself and know how I was reacting to what I was writing while I wrote it. And in doing so, you become opposite-handed in your reflection, and therefore I was writing left-handed but reacting right-handed.
You were right and left-handed. This makes a lot more sense though for the story. To be fair, sorry, and of course you join other greats in their mirror writing, such as Leonardo da Vinci.
And that fellow notorious
mirror writing,
notorious mirror writer. That Alf-spliced fella.
He does.
Richard Scarry as well.
Oh, and him.
Well, Philomena, our time must come to an end, but it's going to
Oh.
come to an end with the usual. Let me put some music on. No one say anything while we do our high quality sound. Hold on. So, Philomena, Rico, dear viewers, listeners, Rowena Hood, a lesbian lady. The signs need to be changed in Nottingham. You believe or you remain sceptical. Let's start with, well, we know where Philomena's going. Philomena.
Of course, I believe it. I've got all this evidence and these books that I've written.
Oh, well, an easy answer, of course. A lot of books. I own 12 of them. Rico, how about you? What do you feel about Rowena Hood?
For me, there's the one thing that settles it, Dickie. Clearly, the rich didn't give it to the poor themselves. Rowena Hood, I'm a believer.
Believer. Philomena, you've won our friend Rico over.
Oh,
Fantastic.
not for the first time, is it, Rico?
It's the first time since you took the tinfoil off your house.
I'll do it again as well. No regrets is my motto.
Unfortunately for me, Philomena, for now, I must remain sceptical. Which is uncommon for me. People that watch know that I do like to believe in things. So it's just for me, it's all about you have to follow the money. And while Kevin Costner is in the picture, it's hard for me to go fully believer. So unfortunately, the Costner effect has struck again, not for the first time. I remain sceptical. Looking in chat, Sockfiddler believes, already half spliced, remains sceptical. Russ believes, that's 2-1. Sparrow remains sceptical. That's and Sparrow is often quicker than me to believe.
That's a blow. He's been a friend of mine for years, and I thought he was sold, and now I gotta get a new secretary. He's prepared to type in his underwear.
And Ewan remains sceptical. So it's a 2-3 in the crowd. I think you'll find an audience. And if not, I'll buy another 3 books just to make you feel better.
It just means that you need to do more snuffling.
I like snuffling, especially around the lady truffles. I find I often come up a winner in that direction. So I'll just have another go around them fuzzy trees.
Well, you go snuffling around some women's fuzzy trees, Philomena. Thank you very much for joining us, as always.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Please come back again soon when Rick is back and on his feet, so to speak. Thank you
All right, my darlings.
so much.
Well, I love you both very much. Bye. Bye now.
And that's Philomena, dear audience. If that's your first time, she's a wonderful woman, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, especially with left. I've not known a bigger specialist on left-handed affairs than her, Rico.
She could write the encyclopedia if she wasn't so busy writing smut. Frankly,
what has more importance in society? I say encyclopedia or smut.
Well, that's up to Philomena to decide, I believe.
It's the government that decides what goes into encyclopedias, after all.
That is true. That is true. Perhaps she's not. She's not what would be deemed encyclopedia writing material by the, the powers that be.
The literati.
Which is always a shame.
Yeah,
it's why the underground movement has such great book writers.
That's a very good point. Well, Rico, I hope you've got time. Have you got time for one more myth for us to look at this evening, Rico?
Of course.
Fantastic. It's one that
How could I say no to the great Dickie Waghorn?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people do. But it's the one that I would say it was one that you'd never heard of before. I came. It was one of the main reasons I came actually to the forest, and I guess I just heard it from a very different place to you. And this is the myth of the faceless owl.
Yes, which indeed, as you say, is one that I'm not overly familiar with. It seems a very weird happenstance that I should be there for one that you're not familiar with, and you should be there for one that I'm not familiar with, and we should run into each other, and well, yeah, the rest is history.
I think so. What I really appreciated most about this was that once I told you about it, and once I started sharing my research and all the proof that I've gathered, you really took to it like a duck to water, I'd say. You seem to really.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to make an
So,
owl joke there in place of duck, but there isn't one.
it seemed like you really
Um,
fell in love with the faceless owl, well, as much as you can with such a terrifying being.
well, indeed, there's just an overwhelming presence of evidence in the case. I think there's so many first-hand and yes, indeed, second-hand witnesses and reports and to be gathered together. But yeah, it's a really captivating one. It's not often that you find a mystery or a truth such as this that really draws you in from the get-go. And this is certainly one of those.
I think one of the things that really makes it captivating is the brutality of the horror. I think this is a horror myth after all, and so many of these involving uh, the aforementioned scout groups, young lovers camping, um, such like those going out into Sherwood Forest to spend the evening or two, pitching their tents, and coming face to face with this terrible, terrible being.
Well, not face to face, of
Well,
course.
of course, face to void. I would say hellish void.
Indeed, which is a terrifying thought if you really think about it.
But even those killed by a vicious predator at least have the chance to look deep into the eyes. I know people say sharks have cold, lifeless eyes, but at least they have eyes.
Well, it's the window to the soul, as somebody once wrote, I'm sure.
So, well, that leads people to believe that an animal with no eyes has no soul. A terrifying thought.
Indeed, exactly. And imagine looking into the void of where those eyes should be of the person or the beast that's just about to finish you off. It doesn't bear thinking about. Must be a truly harrowing experience.
I think it's the again we go a lot on police reports and websites and such like about the events, but it seems like the most terrifying moment is from those that are left behind. That that they hear that gasp from the victim, and they look down to see that the victim's face has almost been sucked off, like there's just a shadowy, faceless mass there, almost as if, as we were talking about the soul, as if the owl has taken the soul. That's a terrifying concept, the passing of soul from child or young lover to the owl itself, perhaps.
Yes, yeah, perhaps, but for some reason, well, certainly in the information that we gathered, but for some reason the owls, I suppose you can only describe it as hunger or need to capture such souls remains unfulfilled, and it goes on. When was the most recent? It's been going. I mean, it still goes on to this day, I believe, doesn't it?
The most recent was 2020. It was a couple that went out during COVID lockdown. Of course, it was just as if you remember, we were allowed to take an hour's walk so and so every day, and then it slowly lifted over the second half of the summer,
Mm.
and a lot of people went out camping, didn't they? And for me, it was that terrifying tale of the young wife who woke up in the night to see her husband not in bed. She heard an owl, a strange, very strange owl call. She knew it was an owl, but it just sounded demonic, otherworldly almost. And her husband not there. And when she went out and just saw her husband stood in his underclothes, just gazing towards a tree. But then when she walked around to the front of him to put him back to bed, it was almost as if the face was gone. She couldn't explain it. Terrifying, absolutely horrifying thought. Of course, you have a different favourite tale, haven't you? One from longer ago, if I remember correctly.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's a different tale, but it shares much of the same undertones. I believe the butcher from the local town having a I'm not sure of the way to put this on such a podcast. Having a midnight rendezvous with with the farmer's daughter in a nearby field, and then this time it was him who awoke to see her gazing up at a tree. And as the legend goes, the same demonic, horrific owl's screech occurred. But as he walked around to the front, it was almost as if his first-hand account is almost as if he just kept walking around and he was just greeted with more back of head. And there's almost
terrifying.
He just never reached the face.
Terrifying. The fact that the body remained standing, didn't slump or anything, just stood there, just as if a mannequin almost at that point. That was jarring. That was frightening.
Indeed, and it's harder to find exactly how long that effect lasted for, but the most popular opinion seems to be for 4 days the body was there. No food, no water, obviously no face. And nobody could find the front of it's horrible to say, but the front of the poor lady's head.
Oh, it's horrible. Did you look much into the articles I sent you about in the 1980s about scout groups that there was often bets and wagers, I guess, and dares among the teenage boys to go owl hunting. I suppose they'd go out into the forest at night while they were camping just outside the forest, of course, on the scouting sites, and they would stay awake until the scoutmaster was asleep. And then, if there was an owl heard, they would dare each other to rush out into the forest and follow any owl sound they heard.
Yes, well, this. Sorry.
No, please, no. I was pausing for you, dear Rico.
Well, this is, of course, why Sherwood Forest to this day has an under average population of owls due to the hunting. Of course, no scout group is going to actually kill the faceless owl. I mean, how do you kill a demonic owl? It's just unheard of, isn't it? But nevertheless, they did bag a few owls, and the owl population has not yet since recovered.
I think the scariest thought for me was of those that were sort of drawn into the forest, and there were reports from those that survived that it was almost as if the owls were hunting. That there was more than one. That there would be a call from one, and to draw them in, then a call from another. There was almost like a whispering chatter as well. some screeching, some some strange noises, and until they'd find themselves caught in an area with nowhere but to look at numerous faceless owls. Do you put much weight on that, or do you think that's someone running with a truth and making a fiction?
Well, we all know that as stories, be they true or false, spread, then the added details get added in quite frequently, and certain people, well, certain personalities have an overactive imagination and will certainly embellish the story to make it a better tale. And I can't say I'm open to the idea, but it's I mean it feels as though there would be more victims, and there would certainly be more of a more interest from the local police or higher up officials if there were that sort of number of victims going missing, or that worse, being found with no face.
I think, of course, there was that was part of the plot line of that independent horror film, The Owling. Of course, if you remember, I'm sure we watched it sort of at the
Based
same
on
time.
a true story.
Based on true story, but I think very much turned up to 11. I think you'd say there were things in that even I would remain sceptical for. I think.
Yes, of course. Well, anything with Kevin Costner in as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Skeptical.
Already half spiced making bad jokes about Cheshire cats and Cheshire owls. Citing, I don't think he's taken it very seriously, Rico, which is unfortunate. I think I like to think we have a high standard of truth foragers in chat, but I'm just gonna check up on his IP address now because
you check that. I mean, I think that sometimes we all find one that doesn't quite grab our attention, and comes across as a little bit humorous to us, and you kind of got to check that sometimes, but sometimes it's okay.
I'll go with
as long as you give it its full the respect it deserves, and investigate and take the evidence, the hard evidence to hand.
For me, there is a lot of hard evidence for the faceless owl. There's some incredible drawings from people. There's some There are some photos in the early days of smartphones where you can make out an owl. It's hard to see the face, of course. It's dark, but it definitely looks like there's no face in the few pixels that make up the face, of course. Someone got. Did you see the video footage? It was quite blurry, of course. Terrifying, I thought.
I will admit I haven't seen the video footage. I have seen the wildlife reports of the increased number of droppings in a certain area, often around where victims have been found, and of course we all know the depleted number of owl. The owl population is depleted in Sherwood Forest, and so there is no real explanation other than some other kind of subspecies or subbreed of perhaps demonic owl, to my mind, at any rate.
I think there's a lot going for this. The faceless owl is has haunted me in my dreams, it must be said, and I sleep with windows closed and curtains well and truly pulled, of course, and shutters over. But I can still hear the outside, and there's been nights when I have heard owls hooting outside my bedroom, and it has sent a chill down my spine. That one night that we were sat talking at yours, and we heard an owl, 2 owls outside, was a terrifying moment. Rico, has the tale of the faceless owl affected you long term?
It has, and ever since that night, I went to a rescue animal place, and I was going to mention it earlier as we were talking about foxes, but I adopted a fox, and he's now my companion in my RV, just in case such a demonic owl appear. It's important to take, measures just in case.
I think so. And I think you can't be too careful when it comes to such things. But I think I'm going to play the important music, and we will do the most important part of the session. Bear with me. Rico, the faceless owl.
That music.
The faceless owl. I believe or skeptical?
Now, I really, contrary to what you might believe, I really struggled with this one. I think a lot of my gut instinct tells me that I should be skeptical, and it's almost too good to be true in the amount of sheer evidence that we have, and the first-hand accounts and the victims and the the pictures and the drawings. It's screaming at me that it's a setup, and anybody looking into this is definitely getting their location tracked by certain people that will remain unnamed, because if I mention it, then I feel the truth foragers may be in trouble. But I just can't help myself. It's too compelling. I believe.
Fantastic. Rico, for me, it's the same. There's a lot of truth truffles that I have snuffled for over the years. I'm an old pro, an old hand at such things. And there's very few that have left me with sleepless nights. In our last podcast, we looked at we had the gas station attendant that myself and Rick looked at, and that left me with scared of picking up hitchhikers. Not that I would, of course, anyway. You've got to be careful, but it left me terrified of just passing people on quiet roads for a while. But not quite as much as the faceless owl. I've double checked my windows at night. If I hear one, I cover my head under the pillow. It's truly affected me. There's so much, the evidence in the drawings and the grainy photos, that blurry video. It's compelling. I think it's unquestionable. I believe, like you, but it's not just for us to say. Of course, we're not quite a democracy at the Truth Foragers, but we do like to trust our friends. Let's have a look. Sock Fiddler remains sceptical. Already half spliced, clearly taking it seriously again, thank goodness, I believe. I knew you'd come through for us. Realm of Russ, I believe. Ewan remains sceptical. So 2 and 2 on the faceless owl. So the one that people believed most this evening was the puckish tree, Rico. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. It's an incredible truth, I would say. And thank you so much for bringing that to us this evening.
Well, no, thank you, Dickie, and thank you for having me, and thank you for taking your time when we're in Sherwood together, and being so devoted to your fans is a credit. Is a credit to both you and the rest of the team at the Truth Foragers.
I'd like to say more than a fan now, Rico. I'd like to say a friend. Oh. Sorry, I thought I was in an 80s cartoon for a minute then. That's but no, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Would you join Rick and I again sometime as a guest? Have you reconnected your phone at all?
It would be my honour. My phone's not reconnected as of yet. But if you do need to contact me, then you know how.
I know how.
Oh, well, yeah. Just make sure the just make sure the pigeon knows where to go back this time.
Of course. I think my pigeons are a bit scared of owls now. I think
and the fox doesn't help.
They saw the footage as well. Anyway, thank you very much, Rico. Thank you, Truth Foragers in chat. We appreciate you. Thank you to our Truth Foraging VOD squad, of course. If it's your first time watching the Truth Foragers, we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be back at the end of September, the last Saturday in September, with Rick Bishop. We'll be back with me, Dickie Waghorn. Rico,
The wonderful Rick.
if he'd be willing to
Sorry.
join us, he's wonderful. If he'd be willing to join us, and maybe we'll manage to find another friend or two. We do love to look at a whole range of urban myths, urban legends, conspiracy theories. But from both of us this evening, thank you so much, Rico. Thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom and your patience.
Thank you for having me, Dickie, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to Wilhelmina as well.
Oh, she's one of a kind.
A wonderful discussion. Yes,
she's a splendid.
She certainly is.
So thank you, viewers. Thank you so much. I hope you'll join us again sometime. But until then, remember to keep snuffling, because any one of you can forage for the truth. Good night.
Good night.